Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. So today, I'm going to talk about how the new Marvel show Echo is meant to redefine the idea of hero. However, if you're looking for a traditional hero and pure entertainment, you might want to click on one of the links in the description or the pinned comment and go on over and take a look at my 3 graphic novels. There are 2 superhero graphic novels and 1 sword and sorcery low fantasy. And you're looking at some of the spectacular art from those in the background, so if any of that looks or sounds appealing to you at all, click on those links and go on over and see if my graphic novels are for you. But we got a lot to get into today, so I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm going to give you a couple of quotes from Bob Iger about Marvel generally, first of all, and then Echo specifically, second of all. Both of these came out during the last week. When talking generally about Marvel, he said the following: "Our plans with what we hold for the future of the Marvel Universe, thanks to Mr. Feige, will allow us to pursue original stories. Our number one priority right now, with our many titles to be revealed next year, will not only divert from our past usage of source material to follow an unpredictable path for our customers and fans of the Marvel Comics, but we will also establish diversity, equity, and inclusion in a unique fashion into our many projects like Brave New World." He goes on to talk about what he says is the new iterations of both Blade and Fantastic Four. He says they will disconnect from source material to create an unexpected turn for the franchise that we are very passionate about. We look forward to transforming those iconic stories with our films apart from what was done in the comics to create something unexpected for our audience. He further goes on to say, with our insertion of diversity, equity, and inclusion, creating a fair world for both our characters and actors, universally we can expect to reach many different cultures around the globe to accept our films and television programs. Within this franchise, our main goals for next year and what lies for our next phase of Marvel will revolve around DEI, that is to say, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as our number one priority. This is not to be misunderstood as any part of an agenda. I believe, as CEO, it is our responsibility to create a fair working environment for everyone and for us to promote that within our characters and stories to tell for the years to come revolving around Marvel. Now, in another statement where he went to talk about Echo specifically and the backlash against Echo, he tried to backpedal just a bit and said the following: "We have been hearing reports of our customers not gaining the satisfaction that we aimed for with this series, and after carefully reviewing all this with our analysis over the course of the past number of days, we have come to the conclusion that those who have any level of concern about the source material surrounding the series and those of our customers that remain unsatisfied with our series is nothing more than a small minority, in a similar pattern that we dealt with for our Marvel's film by director Nina DaCosta." He goes on to say, "We are seeing a common misconception is being handled in an irresponsible manner, that this series of ours is about ideology over art. I can't stress this enough, but we do not engage in any kind of culture wars, nor do we support agenda-driven strategies in our Marvel films." He goes on again to say, "We ask everyone to let the product speak for itself," to say that there is an over-exaggeration of their move into diversity, equity, and inclusion, that DEI is simply meant to expand their audience to a global reach, and that DEI is one of the celebrated and most successful business models for doing this, and then states, "This is one of our current challenges today with modern filmmaking and for our television programs, is how we handle and guide our customers to let the product speak for itself." So I'm just going to break some of that down very quickly. First of all, let's take that statement at the end. He's saying the product needs to speak for itself, but at the same time, we're handling and guiding our audience so that the product can speak for itself. So let's look at all the other statements he made through that lens. You see, what it is, it's basically metagaming. He's saying, well, no, we're not trying to shove this in so that it's a message and an agenda in the show itself, but the way that we present the show and why it is presented in this way, well, yeah, that's an agenda. Because he specifically stated, within this franchise, our main goals for the next year and what lies for the next phase of Marvel will revolve around DEI as our #1 priority. This is not to be misunderstood as any form of an agenda. So yes, DEI is the center and #1 priority within the stories that they're telling. But he's saying, no, it's not an agenda. Why? Because they're using it in an economic sense. They're saying it's about how we sell our product to a global audience, not what we sell to the product, even though it does insert itself into the characters themselves, because he says DEI is going to shape the people who make the products and the characters themselves, in those quotes I just gave. So this is his mental gymnastics. And when you look at it that way, I would say that makes it even worse. Because the ultimate goal of the economic model is, as he says, so that they can, quote, handle and guide our customers to then let the product speak for itself. Because here's the thing, I've seen a lot of people do reviews of Echo on YouTube, and some of them are fairly critical of the story and everything that goes within it. But there's one problem with all of those. And the problem is they're assuming something which then leads them to proceed upon a false assumption. That false assumption that they're proceeding upon and that they're assuming to be true is that Echo as a series, and anything coming out of Marvel right now, is a piece of entertainment media. It isn't. It's a piece of advertisement media. Because as Bob Iger is talking about here, diversity, equity, and inclusion is the center of what they're doing with these products moving forward, because it pre-prepares the audience after watching any of these shows to accept them. And I want to make something clear. First of all, these are the words of Bob Iger, the person in control of the entire company of Disney. He is the one directing people where to go and how to do things. Sometimes even very hands-on. As I covered in one of my other videos, he specifically told them, make Black Panther. I don't care if you don't want to, make it. And secondly, if you've been listening to my channel for the last couple of weeks, you will notice that these quotes from Bob Iger and other people working for Disney almost follow an exact script, one point after another point. So these are pre-prepared statements that they're switching out properties for, because he said the exact same thing about Star Wars a couple of weeks ago. Now he's saying the exact same thing about Marvel. So yeah, this is not off the cuff. This is not him being misquoted. This is a script that he's reading from, and he's the boss of bosses of the entire company, so he's the one who wants it to read that way. But again, the point is that a normal piece of entertainment will try to take the medium of what it is using, let's say television or movies or the genre, science fiction, fantasy, whatever, and sell you the entertainment through that medium. But what he's talking about is to sell you an idea through the medium of entertainment. And there's a distinct difference between the two, because again, as I said, what he's doing is directing advertising media, not entertainment media. They are trying to sell you something so they can sell you even more. Again, to condition their audience to, as he said, handle and guide the audience, our customers, to, quote, let the product speak for itself, which, if we go back to the first of that interview, he talks about this is a small minority that are complaining. So the complainers are the people that don't accept it, that don't allow it to speak for itself. And there's a word for that, to precondition someone's responses so that they automatically accept something instead of critically looking at it. Well, that makes it propaganda. Again, that makes it an agenda, even though he denies it's an agenda, because he's denying that the agenda is there for the sake of being an agenda or part of the culture war. But the agenda is there, he says, as part of the economic strategy. So in my estimation, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another. It really doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, all they're saying is, we're not selling you a message in order to sell you a message. We're selling you a message so that in the future you will continue to accept the message. And now that I got that out of the way, let's look at exactly how they do this quite specifically by selling you the new message of the new superheroes. Because, by the way, they're making no bones about the fact that this is exactly what they're doing. One of the directors for the Miss Marvel television show, when talking about the exact same thing as Bob Iger here, saying about expanding to a global audience, then goes on to say that Marvel is, and I quote, continuing in the footsteps of breaking the mold of who is a superhero and what it means to be a superhero. By the way, she then goes on to talk about this new type of hero and how it is, and I quote, rooted in family, and I quote, and in family dynamics that you fall in love with. And I know that doesn't have a whole lot of relevance right now, but it will after I read the article. Just give me a minute. Also, just as one of the quotes from one of the producers of the Miss Marvel series, and the second in command at Marvel Comics for over 10 years, said that superheroes should be for pushing positive ideas. This is the new direction of superhero in their estimation. But what I'm going to do is read you a short article that just came out last week from Marvel.com to go over this exact thing. It is titled, Echo, Maya Lopez's Hero, and in brackets, and Villain Journey. And then they give a quote saying, the goal was never to turn her from a villain to a hero. The goal was never to turn her into Captain America. The article proceeds as follows. And by the way, Maya Lopez is the character of Echo. It says, is Maya Lopez a villain? It's a little bit more complicated than a yes or no answer, especially considering the events of Marvel Studios' Echo. Yes, Maya does do bad things, like really, really bad things over the course of the season. But does she also help save her friends and family when they need her the most? Also, yes, the creative team behind the show is more than willing to debate at length Maya's decision to operate in the gray area. Considering the previous events of Hawkeye, where viewers first met Maya, she starts off the series largely known as a foe. And along with Maya's growing body count in Echo, director and executive producer Sidney Freeland tells Marvel.com, quote, the goal was never to turn her from a villain to a hero. The goal was never to turn her into Captain America. Instead, Maya has her eyes on a different prize, replacing Kingpin, who she believes is dead. A queenpin, if you will. At the start of the season, Maya has one goal and is willing to do whatever it takes to obtain it, to assert her dominance over her former father figure's empire. Executive producer Brand Wilderbaum explains, Maya is an incredible character because she balances good and evil. She's not what you think of as a classic Marvel Silver Age hero. She lives in a morally gray area. Over the course of 5 episodes, viewers start to learn a little more about what makes Maya tick and see her weigh out the good, the bad, and the very bad options. Knowing in hindsight what it took Maya to even get her in the first place, I think that's a typo and they meant to say to even get here in the first place, viewers quickly learn that, as Wilderbaum explains, some of it is not her fault. Certainly, Kingpin's influence was not good for her growing up, her father's influence in many ways, but even her father, who was a criminal himself, loved his daughter, wanted the best for her. There's no simple right or wrong in this season. Even Kingpin has love in his own way for Maya. Even by the end of all 5 episodes, everything is still in the gray territory. Wilderbaum adds, what the show does an amazing job of doing is giving you empathy for this woman and her journey, and really puts you in her shoes, so that you have to ask yourself what decisions you would make and whether or not you would make the same decisions she did along her journey. She is a killer. She has made massive mistakes, and I think it's fun to debate whether she is redeemable in some way. The article continues, Freeland was really striving to create a sense of balance within Maya, where she herself and viewers could weigh her choices together. She explains, it isn't about taking a character from one extreme to another, it's about taking a character and creating a sense of balance within them. By the way, remember, sense of balance of good and evil, as I said up above. She continues, if you look at the course of this series, there's one thing at stake here, which is that for Maya to truly get her goal at the beginning of the season, she would have to sacrifice her humanity. She's presented with this choice to give that up or preserve that. She does. She chooses the latter. I think that's one of the great things, that we get to say so much in such a small amount of time. Then they quote the star, Aquila Cox, as she says, she's honestly such a complicated person. I have to remember that she's not a bad person because she grew up with a lot of trauma, because her adopted uncle murdered her father and she had to find that out herself, which just made everything worse. She feels all that rage and revenge. She wants to kill people. The article continues, but by episode 5, Maya can identify what kind of person she wants to be. Episode 5, by the way, is the last episode. They continue, even if for right now that does mean stepping into a new space. Cox adds, she's able to solve that rage and reconnect with her biological family and become peaceful and then become a hero. The article continues, however, there's still a long way for Maya to go on this journey, and there might still be questionable choices for her in the future. Executive producer Richie Palmer muses, I actually don't know it's even about redemption for Maya yet. By the end of the show, I'm not sure where she lies. I think she's just happy to go home for Sunday dinner with her family and that everyone survived the journey. I do think she's pretty bad for most of the show. She's fighting that good. Her family, Bonnie especially, they're like, Maya, don't be like this. Don't be like your dad was. Don't do this. And I don't think she hears them until the very end. Okay, so this is a long video, so I'm going to break this down with speed. This entire article is about the redefinition of what you consider a hero. The traditional idea of a hero in Western civilization for the last 3 millennia minimum is that a hero is a paragon of virtue. Those virtues are very specific in number and are accessed in a very specific way. They are prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance, and they are successive. In order to have temperance, first you must have fortitude. In order to have fortitude, first you must have justice. In order to have justice, first you must have prudence. But in order to have prudence, you must have something which precedes the entire thing, and that is right reason. That is to say, your reason in accord with reality. So you readjust your mind, first of all, so that you accept reality as it is. That helps you lead into prudence, which is to say, to make correct decisions based upon what is real. That helps you become just, that is to say, to use those good decision-making qualities and the acceptance of reality to render to everyone what is their due. That allows you to be someone with fortitude, that is to say, someone who can stand up to the slings and arrows of this life that tells you not to be virtuous, which then leads into your ability to be temperate, which is to say, to reorganize all of these virtues in a way that they don't compete or trample each other. And then that brings you right back around to right reason, and it reorders the entire thing. But the point is, it's all based upon the idea that reality is what it is and you need to act in accord with it. Or to say, in a more blunt way, it is based upon objectivity. The idea that yes, there is right and there is wrong. Now you can argue all day about mitigating factors, about what happens that might take some of the blame off a person for doing something wrong. You can argue about intent, whether this person intended to do something wrong or not. You can argue about different characters. Is Wolverine this? Is Punisher that? But all of that is semantics. All of that is window dressing and part of the story for those older stories, that is dependent upon a definition of hero that comes from Western civilization, which runs straight through as a paragon of virtue. And you use your character and apply it to that standard in order to figure out how this character exists, how this story exists, etc., etc. Or to put it in a more grounded and simplistic way of looking at the entire thing, you look at a story and the actions of the hero within the story, and you say at the end of the day, even if it is subconscious in your mind, even if it is something that is ingrained through your reading of stories from Western civilization, you say, no, it all comes down to the free will of this individual, whether they choose good or evil. Sure, there are mitigating factors and all of that, but at the end of the day, what Western civilization teaches, as part of its inheritance and culture, one of the fundamental principles is that you have free will, and at the end of the day, no matter what happens, you make a choice. And the defining factor between a hero and a villain is whether that person chooses good or chooses evil. But what do they portray here as the new type of hero? Because you got to remember, at the end, they're declaring that, yeah, she is a hero, but not a hero like Captain America, not like those old heroes. That's why at the first they say, we're not trying to turn her into a hero. That is to say, they're not trying to turn her into a traditional hero. They're trying to turn her into a hero, all right. The actress that plays her says, yes, she is a hero at the end. Why? Because she's a new type of hero. And what is that new type of hero? Well, it's a hero that operates in the gray area. A hero that has a balance, as they say over and over again, of good and evil within them. And sure, this is part of the marketing strategy to say to the audience, well, look, would you do the same thing in this situation? Calculate all of these things for yourself. Discuss them with other people. This is one of the big things that they've been pushing over and over again. They say these shows and movies, they're meant to generate discussion. That's what they think will sell the movie. They think word of mouth through people discussing these things will make more people want to see it, and then they will get more and more customers engaged in their product, and then they sell the product because of this discussion. Because would you do this? Is this right? Is this wrong? Discuss this with people. But at the heart of the entire thing is discuss this with each other, whether it's good or evil. At the heart of this conversation is, would you do the same thing in that situation? Which is to say, there's no such thing as right and wrong. Don't take those standards and try to apply them here. You discuss what you would do in this situation, which breaks the entire thing down to what is known as situational ethics, which is to say that something can be labeled right and wrong simply by applying your situation to it. There's no absolute right or wrong in situational ethics. There's just, according to these various situations, how do you label this right or wrong? And we can see this play out with the very fact that, you see, they excuse the fact that she does these evil things. They excuse it by saying, well, it wasn't her choice. Well, she was led into doing this. Well, she was taught to do this by her father figure. You see, she has no free will. It's not about her choice, which you can then divide everything between right and wrong. No, it's just something that she was coerced into doing one way or another. It has nothing to do with her free will. It has to do with her situation. To the very extent that the person who plays this character says, yes, she wants to go kill people and get revenge, but it's because of her situation. Or the executive producer saying, sure, yeah, she struggles with doing anything good. She's bad for most of this entire thing, but that's kind of the point. Or the simple fact that at the end of the show, she goes and just wants to have Sunday dinner with her entire family, even though they quite clearly admit that she has not been redeemed at this point. Why? Because she doesn't need redemption. Why? Because it wasn't her fault. Why? Because it wasn't about her free will, her free choices. Why? Because everything's about situational ethics. Why? Because this is a new type of hero that doesn't base itself upon ideas, archaic ideas of black and white, right and wrong. It bases itself upon, well, you see, you're interacting with her family. Remember I talked about the Miss Marvel director also saying that this redefinition of superhero, well, you're drawn into it by these family elements. Well, the same thing works here. It's because you like her family that you'll forgive her for doing all of these things, and therefore she doesn't need redemption. And that comes at the end of the show. So what is supposed to make you feel for her, as they say in the article, it's about feeling with her. It's about empathizing with all of the decisions she has to make. How and why is that done? Well, it's done with the DEI stick. It's done with the insertion of intersectionality. Because why? Because she has all of these intersectionality markers. She's a woman. She's a Native American, which makes her a person of color. She's also disabled in a number of different ways. So you have all this cross-sectional intersectionality coming together within this character, and you have to give her a pass because of that and allow this conversation to take place about, well, maybe I'd do the same. Well, it's a gray area. Well, this is the new type of hero, which again is cemented in the family dynamics at the end, where she is forgiven even though she does not have any redemption or a redemption arc, or even is sorry for any of the things that she has done. So this is the new type of hero. It is a relativistic hero, a hero based upon relativism. Now, to bring it all together, why in the world did I talk so much about Bob Iger and what he was doing with the Marvel shows and about diversity, equity, and inclusion at the very beginning? How does that tie into this redefinition of hero? Well, because they're both the same thing. There's the package of the message and the packaging of the message, and both of those are intertwined, as Bob Iger said. Sure, DEI is the main focus of what they're trying to do, but it's not the main message of what they're trying to push. The main message that they're trying to push is economic. They're trying to say, accept this uncritically and consume it, and while you consume it, you will be taught to accept things uncritically and consume. Because, as Sana Amanat said, superheroes are for pushing positive ideas, and this is the quote-unquote positive idea that they're pushing here. You see, if a hero is put in that position, if a hero is now defined as someone who is living in the gray area, and sure, you can have this discussion one way or another about whether or not they're doing something quote-unquote right or wrong, but the show, at the end of the day, instructs you how first to think about it. It prepares you as part of the customer base, as Bob Iger said, to listen to what they have to say, and then at the end makes the decision that, yeah, even though you had that discussion and it was great for our sales, now we make the decision and say she is a hero and proclaim that she is a hero, even though it's a new type of hero. A new type of hero that's based upon relativism. Why? Because everything's relative. Why? Because you, as the consumer, don't have access to either free will or objective ideas like right and wrong, or objective ideas like good or bad, whether this product is objectively good or bad. As a relativist in a relativistic world, you don't have access to any of those. So accept the proclamations from on high that she is what we say she is. And that this roller coaster of emotion and empathy that you went through, starting with DEI up to this proclamation at the end that she is a hero, is the message itself to say, you've already consumed this product, good, you've done well, now prepare yourself for more product. So, if I've given you anything new to think about, hit like, hit the shield in the lower right-hand corner of your screen to subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about all this. And don't forget, there are 2 links in the description and the pinned comment for my 3 graphic novels, 2 superhero graphic novels, and 1 sword and sorcery low fantasy, focusing on the idea of a traditional hero. And you're looking at the beautiful art for that in the background, so if that looks or sounds appealing to you at all, click on one of those links in the description or the pinned comment and go on over and order yourself a copy of one of my graphic novels today. All right, I'll leave it there. I'll see you later.